Okay, so now we're going to move to the topic of Visa Tap to Phone. So this is about turning smartphones into points of sale devices. The smartphone now is your point of sale device. No additional hardware is needed. This is the subject of this session. We know that small sellers still largely depend on cash. That's a reality, and it's really unfortunate and a disadvantage to small sellers that we want to work together on in order to change. We know that consumers are like want to avoid cash, and we need to make sure that all sellers are enabled to accepting digital payments. And we know that cash is particularly strong with micro and small sellers. Like some estimates indicate that like more than 90% in many regions of small sellers, and it reaches like 99 or 98% in some of the regions as well, where small sellers, small and micro sellers are still dependent on cash. This has to change to make sure that small sellers can meet what consumers want, paying in digital, avoiding cash. From the consumer side of the equation, consumers' comfort with digital payments is just multiplying. It's increasing and increasing, and it will continue to grow. And like even this recent COVID pandemic situation has further contributed to that reality that consumers want to avoid dealing with cash. We have lots of digital first consumers. They rely on digital services, including payments. They just they want to avoid any kind of physical contact-free customer journeys, for example. They just don't want to touch anything. They want the whole end-to-end experience to be contact-free, including payments. And we know that this is possible. This is possible with contactless technology, but we want to make sure again that small sellers have the way to accept digital payments as well and accept Visa payments as well. While the will is there, we also realize that the barriers can be significant. And some of those are high costs of maintaining a terminal. And I'm talking here about really small and micro businesses where sometimes the cost of the terminal might be a challenge in terms of rental cost, the cost that they pay per month, or the maintenance cost, etc. All of that might be a challenge for these small or micro merchants. The second is the certification complexity, time consuming, and again, for small and micro businesses, it might be a hurdle in terms of accepting digital payments or accepting Visa payments. And thirdly, the hardware management. It could be burdensome. Sometimes it's the proprietary terminal hardware to deploy and continually maintain. It might be a challenge for smaller businesses that have lower number of transactions during the month. So these are kind of barriers why maybe many small businesses are still dependent on cash. So when we look at the existing point of sale devices, we realize that probably there is still a gap that needs to be closed in terms of terminals positioning. So there's the traditional point of sale devices or the mini POS or the MPOS, which all rely on dedicated hardware for payments. And for the reasons I cited earlier in the previous slide, those devices like very small micro and small businesses their business might not justify investing in these type of devices. So as we go into smaller kind of merchants, we need a better solution for these kind of merchants. In some markets, there might be QR codes as a way of payment, but it's not available in all markets. So, and not all consumers have a way to pay for QR payments. And we know that contactless as a technology is increasing very fast in terms of adoption, becoming really a global standard in terms of how consumers want to pay. So what is the solution for small businesses to be able to accept contactless payments? So this is where exactly tap to phone fits as a technology. It can help accelerate acceptance for micro and small businesses. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't require a separate hardware. It's about really instant onboarding of the merchant. Download an app, input some information, and from there on, you can start accepting Visa payments on your own mobile device. It relies on the convenience and security of contactless technology. And so it's like people or consumers can tap their cards or their contactless enabled mobile device on the mobile device of the seller. So you tap it mobile to mobile or card to mobile, and the payment happen. As I was saying, Visa Tap to Phone is based on contactless technology, and this is a preferred way for consumers to pay globally. And we know that in our part of the world, it's even higher and higher in terms of consumer dependence on contactless. So in a survey, 61% of consumers prefer to shop wherever contactless is available. It's a very easy way for the consumer. And we know that smartphones are increasingly NFC enabled. So most of the smartphones are now NFC enabled, which makes them able to accept contactless payments. So if you are a merchant and you have a smartphone device that is NFC enabled, that means that device can be used for tap to phone, accepting payments if obviously the right applications are downloaded with the right acquirer, etc. We'll talk more about that. So just a very quick word on contactless. I know there's another session on contactless that goes in much more depth, but for those who want a very quick primer, contactless payment is fast and secure payment experience. It's convenient because no PIN is needed as long as the transaction value is below the CVM limit, customer verification method limit. So this varies country by country. If let's say it's $100 and the consumer is paying a transaction that is $50, it means that the transaction will pass as quickly as a tap of the card on the terminal or on the mobile device if we're talking tap to phone. It's very fast and it's secure because it's based on chip technology. So there is a cryptogram. The card remains in the cardholder hands during the card remains in the cardholder's hand during the transaction and end to end. So back to tap to phone. So tap to phone setup can be as easy as downloading an app. All right, so download and install an app, then select accept payments. That's a demo of how a tap to phone can be enabled. Like it's as easy, let's say, as first of all, downloading and installing an app that allows you to accept payments. Obviously, that app needs to be available. Then registering as a seller, you register in the app. Then you choose your bank, and registration is complete. So that's the vision of where we want to head with tap to phone. As a merchant, now that you have the app on your mobile, to accept payment, you open the tap to phone app. You enter the payment amount. Let's say it's $100. You offer your phone to customers to tap on that on the mobile device itself, and then there is the stage of capturing the PIN, and I'll dig a little bit more into that, and it varies depending on different markets and different ways of enablement. And then the transaction is completed. So option, like as an option, there could be a digital receipt, but that might be not needed. It's an optional step of receiving a digital receipt. So that's an overview, high level, of how the payment process happens if you have tap to phone enabled. So I want to dig a little bit more into the customer verification method scenarios. So as I was mentioning, as you key in the amount, let's assume that the amount is above the CVM limit. So first of all, if it's below the CVM limit, no additional verification is needed. So the customer tap their card on your mobile, and that's it. The transaction is completed. No additional verification method. Now, if the transaction is above the CVM limit by market, so let's say it's $200 in a market where the CVM limit is $100. So there are three scenarios, and again, depending on what is the scenario. One is if the customer is using their mobile device, so then verification can happen using biometrics. So like a technology that we call Consumer Device Customer Verification Method, CDCVM. So the customer can verify themselves using the biometric on the mobile device itself. So this is if the customer was using a Visa token service, let's say Visa card provisioned on the mobile device. There's I've talked about this on the mobile commerce session. Let's assume now the consumer is not using a mobile device; it's just using their contactless card. So they tap their card on your mobile device. So two ways here. Either if your application is enabled for capturing the PIN, so this is where you can capture, the consumer has to type their PIN on your mobile device to complete the payment. If your tap to phone app is not enabled for capturing the PIN, another potential method of verification is signature. So the consumer have to sign on your mobile device. So add their signature as a verification that they have, because the verification is needed in that case. So these are different verification methods. Obviously, the easiest is when the consumer has a mobile device using a biometric, they can complete the verification, or otherwise keying in the PIN. Tap to phone can enable huge in terms of different use cases, whether it is for yourself as a small business inside the store, or on accepting payments in buses, let's say, or parking, or at dining tables for restaurant, you name it, or in cash on delivery, replacing cash on delivery in e-commerce with delivery people. So you name it, in terms of cases where you want to start accepting digital payments using the mobile device, and tap to phone technology can be the solution and the answer for that. As I mentioned earlier, it's a win-win. It's a cost reduction for the seller and for the banks as well. It reduces the cost of terminals and can expand to smaller sellers that want to introduce digital payments to their consumers. There are a set of branding guidelines available to ensure a ubiquitous Visa payment experience for tap to phone. These will be obviously provided, including the contactless mark that needs to be available, the Visa brand mark, and also the Visa sensory animation that generates that sound that a Visa payment has been completed. With the Visa tap to phone, like the display has to be clear up front in front of the consumer, and obviously with the Visa brand and the contactless mark shown and displayed, and then the consumer can tap their card on your mobile for the different use cases that we talked about. If you are in a market, or if you are checking out in a mobile environment, let's say e-commerce, pay on delivery, or you don't have a fixed terminal next to you, or you're a mobile food truck, or whatever kind of environment where the mobile device can come across as your point of sale device. For more information, you can visit the Visa Where You Shop Matter site and contact your local acquiring bank to make sure that if tap to phone is already enabled in your market, or that if not, when will that be coming? The technology is now being deployed. To wrap up again, it's really targeting small businesses to make sure that small businesses now have a convenient or an appropriate way to start accepting contactless payments, Visa contactless payments on their own mobile device without any additional hardware. Thank you and best of luck.